I don't have the topic sheet in front of me anymore. Christianity and the Dream of the Rude, the Wanderer and the Seafarer, Exile, Adventure or Mournful Journey. The theme of exile. Christianity and the Wanderer, the Seafarer, and the Dream of the Rude. Christian messages in Old English poetry. Heaven on Earth. In the Abbess Hilda Whitby, Miraculous Poet Cadman, Seafarer, the Wanderer. The Absence of Culture, a discussion of exile. Significance of the Hall. Importance of the Hall in Old English literature. No Stranger to Exile. Old English Exam. I thought I saw two there. Exile in the Wanderer and the Seafarer. Exile, a lonely figure in lament. Exile in the Wanderer and the Seafarer. Theme of exile in the Wanderer and the Seafarer. Exam 1, the theme of exile. The importance of the Hall in Old English literature. It's interesting how they kind of, I mix them up and they seem to be finding their way together. Home is where the hall is. Just an A just on the basis of the title. Is that what you're saying? One person out there is going, yes. Okay. All right. Picking up where we left off, I believe the other day, and finishing Sir Gawain and the Green Knight today. God be our helper. So we left off with Sir Gawain waking up the morning, the day after Christmas. The knight has gone off with all of his huntsmen, and they're off killing a deer, and we get the bloody, gory description and such. And while Sir Gawain is asleep in bed, the lady of the castle comes and sneaks in. And we saw the part where, he hears a noise, he lifts the coverlet back from his four-poster bed, he sees the door open slightly, she comes in, he pretends to be asleep. Okay? Why is he in a four-poster bed, by the way, with curtains around it? If you've ever been in an English castle, and it's wintertime, very cold and very drafty. Okay? Covers stop the winds coming, from windows and chinks in the castle walls and that kind of stuff. So, he thinks to himself, line 1198, it would be more fitting to discover straightway by talking just what she wants. A woman sneaks into your bedroom early in the morning, everybody else, it might be kind of clear what she wants. Anyways, and so he opens his eyes, pretends surprised, crosses himself, and she speaks to him. And she says, "You are an unwary sleeper that one can steal in here. Now you are caught in a moment. Unless we agree on a truce, I shall imprison you in your bed. Be certain of that." And you can imagine what Freud would have said about being imprisoned in bed. So she says, unless we can agree on a truce. When do we use the word truce? War. What is she saying? There's a conflict here. What's the conflict between her and him? Something's not at peace in this situation. Okay? And we're told, laughing merrily, the lady uttered this jest. Okay? So, notice who says that. Laughing merrily, the lady uttered this jest. That's the narrator. Okay? So the narrator is telling us what about the lady? Does she have a hidden motive? No. How does he describe what she's just done? It's a jest. Okay? What did the Green Knight describe as the purpose for his coming to, I almost said Hogwarts, Camelot? A game. Okay? A jest is a kind of a game. It's a verbal game, if you want. So, this is playtime. Not sex playtime, verbal play. Sex playtime may come later. Verbal playtime. Okay? And I should add, by the way, the poet is going to imply sex. And is going to imply it verbally. That is, the poet is going to use a lot of innuendo. I think that's because of the intended audience. I think the intended audience is a bunch of knights and ladies that are going, whoa, it's pretty risque stuff. Okay? And maybe more. So, Sir Gawain says, "Good morning, dear lady. You shall do with me as you wish, and that pleases me much." James, why did you have that reaction? Yeah. Because you kind of went, what's it mean? You shall do with me as you wish, and that pleases me much. My daughter was home from spring break the other day, pulled out a stack of our DVDs to, because she didn't want to think of school or anything. And one of the movies she watched was one of our family favorites, one of the best films ever made, Princess Bride. What does Wesley always say? As you wish. What does he mean? I will fulfill whatever your desire is. When Sir Gawain says, you shall do with me as you wish, and that pleases me much, he's talking about this, the courtly love tradition, and tied together with this, because they're not the same thing. Courtly love tradition, I always forget to do this. I've got a sheet, and I'll bring it on another day, Tuesday. I've got a sheet that has some of the rules of the courtly love tradition. There were actual rules. There were about 100 of them. Okay? Well, one of those rules is you can't have real romantic love in a marriage. Why? Because marriage is pretty much about one thing. Continuing the line going. Having an inheritance, so to speak. Okay? It's not about love. The love that we're all thinking, romantic love, it's got to be extramarital. That's why I said the other day. At its heart, it's adulterous. Okay? So, when he says, do with me as you wish, part of the courtly love tradition is that when a man swears fealty, swears homage to a lady who is his superior, part of that is, as you wish. I will do whatever you require. I will do whatever you not require, whatever you desire, whatever you want. He puts himself at her disposal. So, he finishes that, and that pleases me much. What is the "and that pleases me much"? That has nothing to do with courtly love or chivalry. That could mean, and that could please me much. So, what do you want to do? What's the setting? They're alone. They're in his bedroom. They're in his enclosed bed. For I surrender at once and beg for your mercy. That's part of the courtly love tradition. He surrenders. She has done what? She has defeated him in the war. That's the truce. So, I surrender. I beg for your mercy. A truce usually means what? I get what I want, you get what you want. I surrender. I beg for mercy means I'm nothing. I abase myself before you. Pedestal? Yeah, she's put on a pedestal. Or, as one of my students a couple of years ago put this in a paper, he puts her on a pedal stool. I'm not kidding. Actually wrote pedal stool for pedestal. So, he says, and that is best in my judgment, for I simply must. Okay? So the surrendering once, the begging for mercy, the do with me as you please. Now, I said that part of courtly love, also part of chivalry. Because what does a knight do according to the chivalric code? The chivalric code, okay, code of honor. The clearest explanation, or the clearest example that we're given of it, is in Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur. And we read, I can't remember where in the Le Morte it is, we read what's called the Pentecost Oath. Every year at Pentecost, the Knights of the Round Table gather and, kind of like hand on a Bible, right hand held up, they swear this oath. Well, what essentially is that oath? It's what Christ talks about in Matthew 25 in the parable of the Last Judgment. Parable of the Last Judgment, cut to the chase. He says, people who do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to admit into heaven. Those who don't, they go to hell. So what is X, Y, and Z? Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give comfort to the poor, visit those in prison, give aid to widows. Essentially that. So the Pentecost Oath is essentially that. It gets extrapolated a little bit. It includes things like rescuing damsels in distress. Why? Because it's romance literature. Okay? So rescuing ladies, helping the defenseless, or defending the defenseless. Okay? Notice in every one of those instances, it requires the person doing something, helping the poor, clothing the naked, cup of cold water, giving food, etc. It requires the person doing those things to do or think what about oneself. Another film we just watched. My son's on a kick to watch all the Marvel movies before the next Avengers, whatever it is, Infinity War 2, whatever, comes out. Endgame, yeah. And then there'll be an Endgame 2 after that, But Doctor Strange. There's a great line in Doctor Strange, okay? When the old one, just before she dies, she tells Stephen Strange a little short statement. Because he's asking her, blah, 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 and she says, Stephen. Anybody know what it is? It's not about you. It's not about you. This whole thing, and Matthew 25, it's not about you. So if it's not about you, who's it about? And we could go all modern literary theory and everything. Capital O. It's about the other. It's about service. So, ultimately, the heart of this is humility. Putting somebody else's needs above one's own. That's humility. That's basic Humility 101, if they're a college course. So what has he just done? He said that. What? She says, I'm going to imprison you unless we reach a truce. That's martial language. She's like, come on, buddy. And he says, you shall do with me as you wish. That is, I become your object. And that pleases me much. I surrender at once, beg for your mercy, and that is best in my judgment, for I simply must. That is, I am bound to. Why? Because of chivalry. Okay? Thus he, narrator, what? Joked in return. Now, everything I've just said makes it sound like this isn't a joke, but the narrator says it's a joke. Why? How does he reply in response to what she says? He replies in kind. That is, the narrator said what she said was a jest. He replies also jestingly. He doesn't take what she says seriously. If he had, this would have been entirely serious. So this is the truth. She makes one statement, and what does he do? He makes a similar kind of statement. But if you would grant me leave and release your captive, ask him to rise, I would get out of this bed and put on proper dress. He's implying I'm not properly dressed to see you. We don't know if that means he's not dressed at all, or if he has medieval form of pajamas. I have no idea what medieval pajamas would look like if they even had them. Okay? And she goes, no, you're not getting out of here and getting dressed. She says, you shall not leave your bed. I intend something better. Yeah. More jesting? What's the problem, if there is one? Might betray my own ideology. What's the problem with this kind of jesting? Or is there one? Okay, which lady is this, first of all? Is it the swimsuit model or the short and squat and Kim Kardashian butt one? It's the beautiful one. How has Sir Gawain been described? Chris Hemsworth.
That's all I remember.
What?
The thick thighs.
I'm not going to touch that one. They're both young and hot. Okay? What could happen in this kind of situation? Jesting can get carried a little bit too far. Okay? She says, no, I intend something better. I shall tuck you here on both sides of the bed, and then chat with my knight, whom I have captured. Now, tuck you in. She comes in. He's lying here. She sits on the bed, and I think tuck you in means. Okay. So he can't really move. And she goes, you're mine. Until she releases him. Why? Because you're Sir Gawain. Okay, so big deal. What does that mean? Well, she tells us. Whom everyone reveres wherever you go. Go back to the beginning of the poem. And Sir Gawain's like, Uncle Artie, can I get up and come talk to you? Can I be the one to fight the big green man? Because he says, everyone knows I'm an idiot, and I'm weak, and the only reason I get to sit up here is because I'm related to you. And now, and in fact, what the porter, the language, that he's described when he first arrives at the castle, how's he described? This is God's gift to women. Okay? If you're heterosexual. So, she says, whom everyone reveres wherever you go, your good name and courtesy are honorably praised by lords and by ladies and all folk alive. Lords, ladies, all folk. So, the whole structure of society, from the highest to the lowest, everybody goes, Sir Gawain. If only. And now, you are here, and we're alone. Yeah, my husband and his men are far away. Where's she going with this? Other servants are in bed, and my women too. The door is shut and locked. That is, she came in and since I have under my roof the man everyone loves, I shall spend my time well while it lasts with talk. He's kind of going, keep going. The poet puts that with talk where he does, or she does. Why? Because it's building. And then you get this letdown. But then she just kind of builds up again. You are welcome to me indeed. Okay. You are welcome indeed means one thing, right? You are welcome to me means what? I'm yours. I'm here. Take whatever you want. Well, what did the knight tell him the very first night Sir Gawain shows up? You can have whatever you want in this entire castle. It's all here for your pleasure. Circumstances force me to be your servant. What circumstances? What are the circumstances that force her to be his servant? The one she created, right? I mean, she's the one who went up the stairway, came through the door, turned around, locked it, snuck over to the bed, pulled the curtain back, stepped inside, closed the curtain, sat down. Hello. Those are, circumstances make it sound like I have no free will. This is, God's doing. Or as Flip Wilson used to say on his TV show, the devil made me do it, Sir Gawain, truly I am greatly honored, though I am not in fact such a man as you speak of. He doesn't mean necessarily, oh, you think I'm that? No. I'm Sir Gawain the Lesser. I'm Sir Gawain the nobody knows about. He's the great one. It's not what he's saying. He's saying, but people don't really say that kind of stuff about me. This is the echo of the humility that he shows at the beginning of the poem. So, I am completely unworthy, he says, to have the respect you've just described. I know very well. I should be happy indeed if you thought it proper that I might devote myself by words or by deed to giving you pleasure. If I could give you pleasure by speaking or maybe reading, deed, however, implies something else. But within both the courtly love and chivalry tradition, what can deed mean? I'll go do some martial quest for you. I'll go conquer a nation. I'll go kill a giant, slay a dragon. Deed can also, however, mean something else. Because she says, here I am. You're welcome to me. It would be a great joy. And she says, in all truth, if the excellence and gallantry everyone admires, I were to slight or disparage. So, if I were to treat you like you are not who everyone says you are, that would hardly be courteous. She's bound by courteousness or courtesy too. She's saying, no, I've got to treat you according to the level of courtesy you merit on the basis of what? His reputation. You are reputed to be these things, therefore I have to act as though you actually are these things. A great many ladies would much rather now hold you, sir, in their power as I have you here, to spend time amusingly with your charming talk, delighting themselves, forgetting their cares, than much of the treasure or wealth they possess. Okay? Ladies, assuming you're heterosexual, imagine in your mind who would be Sir Gawain. Who would be the ideal male figure that any woman / every woman would rather have pinned to a bed than the treasure or wealth they possess? Now, I don't know any of your financial, backgrounds, but I'm assuming nobody in here is independently wealthy. Maybe you are. Good for you. But assume you were. And independently wealthy meant you had millions or billions. And you would trade that for a time with this person. We're not talking prostitution or anything like that. It's not that. It's just, you look at the bank account and you go, him or this? Him. Delighting themselves, etc., etc. But I praise that same Lord who she brings God into the picture. I mean, they're just getting going. But I praise that same Lord who holds up the heavens. I have completely in my grasp the man everyone longs for through God's grace. Everyone longs for. That's That doesn't sound like to have a bedtime chat with. That sounds like sex. And what does she do? She prefaces it and she follows it with, thank God. Thank God I have the man everyone longs for by God's grace. What's the God doing on either side of the longing for this man? Is it quote unquote sanctifying it? Is it blessing it? Is it making it somehow holy? Or is it kind of a disjuncture? Does it kind of fingernails on the chalkboard? This doesn't quite work right. Radiant with loveliness, great favor she conferred. The knight with virtuous speech answered her every word. So, every word she says, he answers, we're told, with virtuous speech. If it's virtuous, it means it doesn't have any hint of vice, any hint of naughtiness in it. And what's the verb that the poet uses? Answered. What does that verb literally mean? Okay, we say reply. It's related to what you pull out of a sheath. Sword. It is a sword against. So when you answer somebody, it's kind of like you are parrying their thrust and stroke with the sword back to you. It's verbal jousting. Okay? So what do you do when you answer? You're defending yourself. So he raises his verbal sword and goes, but it's all virtuous. That is, none of it's offensive. Because what do you do when you go on offense? You try to get the upper hand. You try to defeat the other person. Martial language, right? Well, we're back to the truce kind of thing. Poet is brilliant in terms of how the poet weaves all this together. So, here's part of his virtuous speech. Yeah, we probably won't finish it today. He says, Lady, may Mary repay you. Why? Well, she brought up God. So now he's going to bring up Mary. Remember what Sir Gawain does just before he sees the castle? He prays. He says, Our Father who art in heaven, there's God. And then, Hail Mary, full of grace, Ave Maria. So we have God. We have Mary. And then in the prayer, he goes on and recites the creed. Let's see if the creed shows up. I don't think it does. So, may Mary repay you, for I have truly made proof of your great generosity, and many other folk win credit for their deeds. But the respect shown to me is not at all my deserving. That honor is due to yourself, who know nothing but good. What has he just said about her? There is not a lick, an ounce, a spot of evil in you. There is not a tincture of vice in you. You know nothing but good. Your soul is utter goodness. That's why he says, may Mary repay you. Mary without sin. The Blessed Virgin. That's a pretty virtuous response, right? Because a little bit later on, they're going to have another one of these interviews, and he's going to say something that's not going to be quite that virtuous in terms of something he's going to imply about her. So, she says, by Mary. So, she introduces God. He introduces Mary. She kind of says, like, I see you're Mary and I raise you a Mary. It's almost like poker at this point. Okay? Okay, you want to bring Mary in? Fine, we'll bring in Mary. Bear in mind, what does he have laying somewhere in this room? His shield, which has on it the image of Mary on the inside. Now, we don't know where his shield is laying. If it's just laying on the floor, probably not likely. Or if it's propped up somewhere. If it's propped up somewhere, is the outside facing him or is the inside facing him? So, she says, by Mary, to me, it seems very different. What does she mean? It seems very different. Well, what did he say? He said, I have truly made proof, that is, I have tested, I have verified your great generosity. Well, what was her great generosity? You are welcome to me. That's pretty generous. And many other folk win credit for their deeds. Okay? So she says, to me it seems very different. Because if I were the worthiest of all women alive and held all the riches of the earth in my hand, so not just if I was J.K. Rowling with my billions, but I had J.K. Rowling's wealth and Jeff Bezos' wealth and, Warren Buffett's wealth and Bill Gates and all of them all put together. And I could bargain and pick a lord for myself. Bargain. What do you do when you bargain for something? I'll give you $20. No, I got to have at least 30. I'll give you 22. No, I got to have 28. I'll give you 24. No, it's got to be 26. Okay, 25. That's bargaining. So if I had all the wealth in the world and I would bargain, cheapskate, if you have all the wealth in the world, you don't need to bargain. You can pay, whatever somebody asks. She says, could bargain to pick a lord for myself. For the virtues I have seen in you, notice, not what I've heard, those I've seen in you, Sir Knight, here, and I think the here means right here in the few minutes we've been together in this bed, not in this bed, but what? Of good looks, good looks, that's a virtue. A virtue is something you strive for. Now, unless we're talking he's got a lot of plastic surgery or wearing a lot of makeup, you either have it or you don't. I mean, you're born with it or you're not, unless you do the plastic surgery kind of stuff. But that's considered a virtue. So, of good looks, in courtesy, in charming manner, all that I previously heard and now know to be true. Okay? So I've heard your reputation, and now I know it's true. No man on earth would be picked before you. Who does no man on earth include? I imagine he starts going a couple miles away. What's that? My ears are burning. You're it. I choose you. And he replies, indeed, you have chosen much better. He's not talking about himself. He's talking about her husband. But I am proud of the esteem that you hold me in, and in all gravity, your servant, my sovereign, I consider you. And we're back to courtly love. He has just said, you are my monarch. If she is his sovereign, then what can she say to him? Do this. And according to the medieval feudal system, he has to do it. He can't go, can I wait? Can I not do it? My sovereign, I consider you, and declare myself your knight. That's part of the chivalric and courtly love tradition. And may Christ reward you. So, I see you're Mary, and I raise you a Jesus. Second person of the Trinity, he trumps Mary. I mean, how's she going to reply to that?
By the Holy Spirit.
He doesn't trump Jesus. So they chatted of this and that until late morning, and always the lady behaved, next two words, as if loving him much. What does as if always imply?
It doesn't actually.
Doesn't actually. Donald Trump acts as if he has total self-control. Nobody would say that, you know? Pick your porn star, acts as if a virgin. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay? So, she acted as if she loved him much, and the knight reacts cautiously, in the most courteous of ways, though she was the loveliest woman he could remember. Why cautiously and in the most courteous of ways? Well, one of those rules in the courtly love tradition, pay attention to this, everyone, because this could blow you out of the water. If a lady comes on to a knight, if the lady of a castle says, George, I'm yours if you want me. You don't even have to go kill a dragon. Just come to my room. And George goes, begone, foul slut, or something like that. He's just violated a major rule of the courtly love tradition. Because that rule says, if a lady desires you and you don't want to fulfill her desires, you have to say no in such a way that she does not feel rejected. Screwed. Totally. Right? How do you get out of that? How do you say, no, I can't really, because what's going to be the very next question? Why? That's going to happen. But she's going to give him this huge door to walk right through. She's going to give him the greatest excuses he could possibly want. And he doesn't take any of them. Okay? So, notice he reacts cautiously, most courteous of ways. What does the though imply? Though she was the loveliest woman he could remember.
He really didn't want to.
Yeah, or he does want to. I mean,
Well, yeah.
He doesn't want to reply
Yeah.
cautiously and with courtesy. He wants to say, you sure the door's locked? Let's make sure. He felt small interest in love. Why? He's got this little problem hanging over his head called a big, giant axe. He's thinking, I got 2 more days.
Faith also kind of a testament to it, but I'm dying in 2 days, so might as well have fun and it doesn't go that route.
Yeah, really. I mean, if he's thinking, I got to meet the big guy with the axe in a few days, yeah, I'm going to have fun. I'll have you and then send up your serving lady. And, So, she gets ready to leave, and she says, may he who prospers each speech repay you this pleasure. Well, who is he who prospers each speech? That's God again. Okay. Prospers means brings to fruition, makes it worthwhile. But that you should be, Sir Gawain, I very much doubt. Why? Notice, quick with this question, fearing he had committed some breach of good manners. He's thinking, oh my God, what have I done? What have I said? How have I offended her? Because, according to chivalry in the courtly love, you can't offend. You can't offend a woman. What's the problem there? It's a huge problem today. If a guy says to a woman, you look nice today, what can that be taken as? Harassment. I'm not getting into all politics and all that kind of stuff. He's afraid, though, I violated some moral code. Okay? But the lady said, bless you, what is... Oh. And she's not even Southern. I mean, what has she just said? Bless his heart. Because what always does that mean? You're screwed, man. You idiot. For this cause, she goes, bless you, you don't even know what you've done. So good a knight as Sir Gawain is rightly reputed, in whom courtesy is so completely embodied. What does embodied mean? The day before they celebrated what? Christmas. Christmas is what? The embodying of God in human form. Sir Gawain is the embodiment, we're told, of courtesy. So, if he is that, it should be impossible for him not to be courteous. That's why she says, I don't think you are really this Sir Gawain. Well, earlier he said, no, I'm not that one. Now he's like, what do you mean I'm not Sir Gawain? Of course I'm Sir Gawain. Here, let me show my wallet, In whom courtesy is so completely embodied, could not easily have spent so much time with the lady without begging a kiss to comply with politeness. So we're being told 1375 to 1400, you spend a little time with a woman, you better ask for a kiss before you leave. How? Do you literally go, can I have a kiss? Because that's pretty lame. By some hint or suggestion at the end of a remark. We're at Hitch, if you're familiar with the movie Hitch, when Hitch is trying to teach James, what's his name? Alfred Brenneman. How to move in for the kiss. He goes, what? You go 90%, she comes 10%. Yeah. And he does this, it's just hilarious. So, something like that. So what's he going to do? He's going to finish a sentence and then pucker up? Sir Gawain says, let it be as you wish. And then he's channeling his inner Wesley again. As you wish. I will kiss at your bidding as befits a knight. Why? If a lady of higher status bids something, notice this can't be the scullery maid who's wanting to climb the social ladder. So she can't go up and find some guy who's, pretty high ranking and go, hey buddy, give me a kiss. He's going to go away. No. He says, I'll kiss at your bidding as befits a knight. He can stop there. But he does not. And do more, rather than displease you, so urge it no further. So he offers, and I'll do more than give you a kiss to please you, but don't go there. That's the so urge it no further. Because if you do, I will, but don't, because he's implying I don't want to, but I can't say I don't want to because I can't disappoint you. I can't have you feel rejected in any way. That's why he says, and do more. Because it's like every time she offers, he has to take that offer and he's got to amp it up just a little bit to make her know he's really courteous. And with that, she approaches him and takes him in her arms, stoops graciously over him. I think that means she reaches down, puts her hands underneath, kind of lifts him up off the bed, kisses the knight. They politely commend each other to Christ's keeping. She goes out of the room without another word. He gets up as quickly as he can, calls for his chamberlain, gets all dressed. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Bambi's getting gutted. Okay? And so we see all that. Long description, right? Really long description. And we pick up when the knight comes back that evening. He says to Sir Gawain, so how'd your day go? And he says, caught this deer, it's yours. Line 1384, for by the terms of our compact, you may claim it as yours. Sir Gawain says, yep, you're right. And I say the same to you. What I've won inside this castle, with as much goodwill, truly shall be yours. And he takes the knight by the neck in his hands, gives him a couple kisses. Kisses him as pleasantly as he could devise. He says, here's my winnings. And the knight says, the lord of the castle, way to go, buddy. But it would be better if you told me where that kiss came from. Sir Gawain's like, that wasn't part of the deal. You just said, I give you what I get, and you give me what you get. He goes, okay. Okay? So, hey, let's do it again. I'll go hunt tomorrow. You hunt here. You stay here. Let's see what happens. Okay? So, next morning, the Lord goes off, goes hunting. They go after a boar. What's the difference between hunting a boar and hunting Bambi?
Boar will fight
Boar's big. Medieval boar, we have written accounts, were known sometimes to be 6 feet tall at the shoulder. In fact, one was killed in Georgia about 3 years ago. 6 feet tall at the shoulder. I'm about 5'10".
Wait, you're talking about on all fours?
Yeah.
Pardon?
It's on his back legs?
No, on all fours.
Heck no.
Okay.
That's terrifying.
Same weight a ton. The one in Georgia. He's killed by a 15-year-old.
Oh.
Out there with his, I think he had an AR-15. Which the AR-15 is not a very powerful gun, but it'll fire a lot. You put enough rounds in the heart and they'll get there eventually. Okay? Anyways, so they're killing a boar. What else about boar? It's not just the size, it's the tusks. That's why you have to have a whole bunch of people, because a boar will gut a horse. Okay? So this is dangerous. This is really dangerous. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the lady comes in again. And we're told, our gracious knight, 1469, lies in bed. Gawain, happily at home, bright-colored bedding so rich, nor did the lady fail to wish her guest good day. Early she was there, his mood to mollify. What's it mean to mollify? To make at peace, to calm down. Somebody's having a really bad day. You want somebody to mollify you. A lot of people do that with booze or drugs, or sex, as it gets implied here. So she comes in the curtain, peeps in at night. Again, notice, there's no knocking on the door. There's no, can I come in? She just comes right in. It is her house. So she comes in. Sir Gawain welcomes her politely. She returns his greeting. She sits down on the bed. She laughs. Charming glance. If you are Sir Gawain, it astonishes me, 1480, that a man always so strongly inclined to good cannot grasp the rules of polite behavior. Come on, you screwed up again. What rule of polite behavior? Sir Gawain's sitting there racking his brain. Oh, what have I done? You just came in. How could I have violated the rules of behavior? And if someone instructs him, lets them drop out of mind. You forgot the lesson I taught you yesterday. What lesson? If what you say is true, the blame is all mine. I told you about kissing, she says. To act quickly wherever a glance of favor is seen. Define glance of favor. Louder? Bedroom eyes? Define bedroom eyes. Yeah, okay? Because what can glance of favor mean? Well, to one person it means one thing. To another person it can mean something else. Entirely different. Okay? He's thinking, I'm totally screwed. I mean, talk about your catch-22. So, that befits every knight who practices courtesy. And come on, all the knights know this. Okay, let's pause for a moment. Let's enter the realm of supposition. Take this all literal face value. What could one say? I'm not saying it does. What could one say this implies about the lady?
She's down.
She's kissed other knights. Okay. She's what? Well, Sir Gawain's going to say something later. She's going to talk to him about, teaching him about love. He's going to go, come on, honey. You know more about love than what? 150 knights.
Gosh.
Not N-I-G-H-T-S, K-N-I-G-H.
Cool.
What's he mean?
You
Here's
slept
the.
with 150.
It doesn't mean that you've slept with 150. It means here's the block. And Sir Gawain's saying, I've been around the block once. She wore a path. I mean, we're going to see when we get to the wife of Bastille. the wife of Bath is going to say at the very kind of end of the tale, give away the punchline of it, essentially. You can have me young, the character in her tale says this. You can have me young, beautiful, lusty, but false. I'll sleep with anything that moves. In fact, there's going to be a path worn to your door. But you'll get your fill. But so will Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Fred, and George, and everybody else in the neighborhood. Okay? You can have me like that, or I can be the way she is when she's saying this, old and foul and ugly, kind of like Morgan Le Fay is portrayed here. But I will be true to you, and I'll give you sex whenever you want it. And he's like, as you wish, We'll talk about why later. So, he says, well, quit talking. You're talking about kissing? Well, shut up. Come on. He says, dear lady, enough of such talk, for I dare not do that. Why? Lest I were refused. He's saying, I can't go the full 100%. I can't.
Okay, you can't then.
I hope they were recording that. He said, I can't go the 400. You gotta show me something. We should just stop right there. And why? Lest I were refused. Because if she refuses him, what does that mean? You went too far. You overstepped the bounds of courtesy, courtly love, chivalry, everything. You're a rapist. That's what it means. Okay? And look at her response. He goes on, if repulsed, I should be at fault for having presumed. Ma foi, my faith, she says. Notice, the gay lady. What does gay here mean? Happy, joyful, blithe. It means playful. Okay? Playful. This is still what? It's still jesting. You could not be refused. Now, if we didn't have anything else that came after that, that could mean a couple of different things. What woman in her right mind would say no to you? It could also mean what? No woman strong enough to refuse you. Well, she makes it clear what she means. You are strong enough to force your will if you wish. You're strong enough to rape me if you wanted to. That's literally what that means. Okay? If any woman, those of you feminists, this ought to just totally be blowing your mind in smithereens. If any woman were so ill-mannered as to reject you, ill-mannered. So, if any woman rejected you, it would be why? Because they were ill-mannered. They didn't know no better. Yeah, And he's like, what? He says, yeah, yes, indeed, what you say is quite true. Now, that could be pretty dangerous, right? What could he be saying? You're right.
Never thought about it that way.
And we're all alone. And I never thought about it that way. But in my country, what? Force is considered ignoble. In other words, rape might be okay up here in Woodbury, but down there in Camelot, we don't do those things. Why? This. That is antithetical to this. Because rape is all about what? Me. Me. It's literally, screw you. It's nothing about you. It is all about me. He is saying, in my country, we don't do that. And so is each gift that is it's ignoble, and so is each gift that is not freely given. By the way, if you've not read it yet, The Wife of Bath's Tale begins with what? Skip the prologue, which is longer than the tale. Don't literally skip it. Read the prologue, but for purposes of right now. It begins with what? It begins with an Arthurian knight riding out into a meadow. He sees a drop-dead, gorgeous, swimsuit model, and he rapes her immediately. I mean, without even thinking about it. He gets caught, and Guinevere says, buddy, your life is mine. But I'm going to possibly allow you to preserve yourself. Go find out what women want. Come back in a year and a day and tell me. And if you don't answer right, okay? And Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt did a film on it. Not really, but so. And so is each gift that is not freely given. Well, what's the free gift he's talking about? Or each gift? The kiss. She said, I taught you about kissing. Why didn't you steal a kiss from me? If it's stealing, it's not given. He's saying, and each gift that isn't freely given, so if you want to kiss me, here I am. You got to come to me.
Isn't she also contradicting herself because she said that you have to suggest that you wanted a kiss, but he didn't suggest it, so she's like, hey, just take it.
Possibly, but how does she, what language does she use about the suggesting? Is it clear? That is the suggesting, the bedroom eyes? That's why I said, person A might say, hey, this was pretty clear. Person B might go, rapist. It's not clear. It's not what I meant. Get away from me. Popular book, 20 years ago. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Why? When it comes to matters of sex, we seem to speak a totally different language. It's like I'm speaking Greek and you're speaking Swahili, and it's like, huh? So, he makes clear what he means. I am at your disposal to kiss when it pleases you. You want a kiss? Here I am. He's like one of the Japanese sex dolls. I'll do whatever you program me to do. Here I am. Just use me. Well, what did she say earlier? You are welcome to me. Okay? And you thought English literature was dull and boring. Right. I am at your disposal to kiss when it pleases you. You may take one when you like. In other words, while I'm still talking, now would be good. And stop as seems good. Notice the pause. In a while. In a while implies when. No, not now. Okay, I'll tell you. Come up for air, She bends down over him and gives him a kiss. For long they then discuss love's misery and bliss. In the 1940s, I don't know if we'll get to this part or not today. In the 1940s, a scholar named Denis de Rougemont, Dennis of the Red Mountain, wrote a book called Love in the Western World, in which he argued the central theme of all quote-unquote romantic literature in Western literature is about the Liebestod, the love, death, or death in love. All romantic love, Rougemont argues, leads to death. Give me an example. Romeo and Juliet. Okay, but they're teenagers and stupid, so leave them aside for a moment. Who else? Antony and Cleopatra. They're not teenagers. They're past their prime. Okay? They lose everything. Why? For death. Dido and Aeneas. characters who are going to be mentioned. Same thing. Celtic, earlier Arthurian literature, before Sir Gawain and this lady. Arthur, Guinevere, Guinevere and Lancelot. And before Guinevere and Lancelot, Celtic, King Lot, film, Irish, Tristan and Isolde. Okay? And every one of these also is what? It's adulterous. Because Antony's already married when he and Cleopatra start shacking up. Isolde is already engaged to King Lot. Guinevere is already married to Arthur, etc. The reason why Romeo and Juliet don't perfectly fit the pattern, they're free agents. Neither one is promised to somebody else. Okay? So, what do they do? Pardon?
Juliet's engaged. Was she? Or betrothed? She was intended to marry Tybalt?
Intended. Yeah, I don't
think they were engaged.
I don't think they're actually engaged.
I thought they were engaged in the latter half of the play, but I could be wrong. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since, because I don't teach Romeo and Juliet because I hate it. Okay, now you make me, I've got to go back and reread it. So, they discuss love's misery and bliss. And I've left off a couple intentionally because it's one almost nobody's familiar with. But they were familiar with it in the Middle Ages. Why? Because Dante made this couple figure prominently early in the Inferno. And it's two historical people, Paolo and Francesca. Paolo and Francesca. They were brother-in-law to sister-in-law. He was the brother-in-law of her husband, of her husband. Okay? And what happens is her husband's away doing something, and so they're spending time together, and they're, doing medieval kind of stuff. They're reading, etc. And what are they reading? They're reading romance literature. They're reading tales of love. And they read aloud, and they look at each other, and they read aloud, and they look at each other, and they start spending less time reading and more time looking at each other, and before you know it, the clothes are off and they're writhing on the floor. And the husband comes in. And with a single sword, pins them both. So they are killed in flagrante. And they spend all of eternity in a whirlwind of passion, each one trying to get to the other. Okay? Why? Because of love's misery and bliss. So they start talking about that. Now, I think Sir Gawain and the Green Knight's audience is familiar with Dante's poem at this point, and they're going, uh-oh, this is bad stuff. Something's going to happen. And so she says, I would learn from you, if the question was not irksome, what the reason was that someone as young and valiant as yourself, so courteous and chivalrous as you are known far and wide, and of all the aspects of chivalry, this is 1510 and following, the thing most praised is the true practice of love. In other words, we can talk about it, we can read about it, but it's actually doing it that's important. The true practice of love, knighthood's very lore. For to speak of the endeavors of true knights, the written heading and text of their deeds is that, how knights have ventured their lives for true love, suffered for their love-longings dismal times, and later taken revenge on their misery through valor, bringing joy to their ladies through their personal merits. So, what she just described, medieval romantic literature. They meet, they fall in love, he goes off, performs all these great feats. For what purpose? To prove his love for her. It's not making love, it's showing, proving his love for her. Okay? So she says, I would learn from you, talks about all this, what? And here you're the most outstanding knight of the time. So here's the story, the theory background. And here you are supposed to be the best knight there is. Your fame, your honor, they're known everywhere. And here now I've sat by you for 2 different times, 2 different days. And what? And I don't hear word one from you about love. What's your point? If you're supposed to be so knowledgeable about love, why aren't you teaching me? Okay? She says, I don't hear any word in you who make such courteous and elegant vows. Like what? You want a kiss? Here I am. In fact, I'll do even more than kiss, so don't urge it. Those are pretty courteous and elegant vows. She says, you should be eager, 1526, to instruct a youthful creature and teach her some elements of skill in true love. How's she talking about herself? Well, golly gee, Mr. Sir, I don't know nothing about no love. Will you teach me? That's what she is saying. She is presenting herself as this young, innocent, virginal waif. Teach me. Look at his response. Okay? Teach her some elements of skill and true love. What? Are you ignorant who enjoy such great fame? Or do you think me too silly to take in courtly chat? Too silly means too foolish. It can also mean too poorly or uneducated. Or do you think I'm just some provincial hick who can't understand that kind of talk? For shame. I come here alone, and I sit to learn your special play. Show me your expertise. And she wants to make it clear, while my husband is away, teach me. Yeah, she even makes it rhyme. In good faith, says Sir Gawain, may God reward you. Notice he brings God back in. Why? Things are getting a little hot and heated. He knows what could happen. It gives me great gladness, pleases me hugely, that one as noble as yourself should make your way here. That is to my room. Trouble yourself with a nobody, trifling with your knight with any kind of favor. That is, you're showing me any kind of favor is a trifle. It is nothing compared to what she could show him. He's talking here, he's emphasizing her greatness, her stature above him. Okay? It gives me delight. But to take the task on myself of explaining true love and treat the matters of romance and chivalric rules to you whom I know well, have more expertise in that subject by half than 100 such men as myself ever can, however long I may live, would be absolute folly, noble lady, on my word. So I'm going to teach you who have more knowledge about that by half than 100 men, that is, by 150 men. He doesn't mean you've slept with 150 men. He means you have more knowledge of love than 150 other people. Knowledge? Is he talking book learning? No. That might be a little bit of book learning. He's talking experiential praxis kind of learning. He's talking the kind of knowledge that the Bible, the Old Testament says, and Noah knew his wife. And it wasn't she was Jane. It was, and they had children, you know. Every time in the Old Testament when it says, and so-and-so knew they had sex. That, I think, is what he's talking about here. Me teach you? Come on. Noble lady, noble, I will carry out your desires with all my power. Well, what did she say earlier? You're big, you're strong. You can take what you want. Well, he's just said, you have desires, I'll fulfill them with all my power. as I am in all duty bound. Why? Because when he first meets her, what does he do? He swears homage to both her and Morgan Le Fay. So he's duty bound now, and always will be the servant of your wishes. May God preserve me. Why may God preserve me? Because if she asks him to give in to her wishes, God's the only thing that can preserve him. Because he will be violating other oaths. Okay? Like the oath to the Lord of the castle. Notice, by the way, catch-22 position he's in. He swore fealty to that Lord of the castle when he agreed to take a precedence there temporarily. And now he's going to cheat on him? That's the problem. At the heart of courtly love. It can't work. Because of its inherent adulterous nature, society can't work this way. Okay? And by the way, we don't really think, or most scholars today don't really think, it used to be thought 100 years ago, that this was real. That real knights tried to do this in reality. Now it's not, it's totally a literary construct. Why? Because most English wouldn't be around today, because they would have killed each other with all this adultery going on. You sleeping with my wife, you know. So, thus, 1549, that lady made trial of him. Doesn't mean trial like a courtroom trial. What kind of trial does it mean? Temptation. That word for trial, by the way, it's not related to etymologically, but it has similar meaning to these words also. You know why? You know what idea they're all connected with? It's a big one in the history of kind of the Western world. They're all related to alchemy. Okay? What's the goal, the ultimate goal of alchemy? The Philosopher's Stone. It's literally the Philosopher's Stone. Because what can you do with the Philosopher's Stone? Transmute base metal into gold, it was thought. Turn lead into gold. Okay? And construct the elixir of life, the drink of immortality. That's the surface level. What the alchemists were really after was, that's the material level, was a spiritual level. Self-transformation, self-purification, transmitting, changing this material thing to spiritual purity and gaining eternal life. Okay? That's why it was, quote unquote, entirely consonant, that is, in agreement, or could be, within the whole Christian ideology. All right? There weren't, not a bunch of magicians running around in stupid robes, Harry Potter kind of nonsense. So, thus the lady made trial of him. So, making trial, what's going on? It's turning on the heat process. It's purifying. It's getting rid of the waste. Right? She made trial of him, tempting him many times. Now, tempting is what kind of word? Is tempting ever, I guess metaphorically, positive? No, it's not. And if anyone tempts somebody else, then what are they always doing? They're always not raising that person up to what the best they can be. They're lowering them down. So in the third book in the Harry Potter series, just before Harry blows up Aunt Marge, they have big dinner, and Uncle Vernon says to his fat, bloated, drunken sister, "Can I tempt you, Marge?" As soon as he says that, you ought to know, all hell's about to break loose. All right? So, she tempts him many times. Why? To have led him into mischief. whatever her purpose. What does whatever her purpose do to the previous line and a half? What does it say her purpose was? We don't know. So if the purpose isn't clear, is the tempting clear? No. We are told she tempts him. We're not told why. What if it didn't have that whatever her purpose? What would you think the temptation was for? Why is she saying, kiss me, talk to me about love, teach me? Because she wants to have sex with him. Okay? Because he is, pick your famous, male movie star or whatever. Because he's that person. If it didn't have whatever her purpose. And then we're told, but he defended himself so skillfully that no fault appeared. What's a fault? A crack. No crack appears in his persona. Like a fault line in California. In other words, he's still good. He's still perfect. The perfect Sir Gawain we've been told he is. Nor evil on either side. Wait, but she tempted him. Go back to the Garden of Eden story. The snake. No evil there? No. Total evil there. So how can there not be any evil? Maybe the purpose of the temptation is not what it initially appears to be. She doesn't really want to sleep with him. But what's the danger of the kind of temptation that's there? It could happen. And what does Sir Gawain say? Every time when he says, I'm here to do as you wish. God save me. Don't urge me. Please don't ask. He always undercuts that with but don't ask me to do that. I will if you want me to, but I really don't. Nor evil on either side, nor anything did they feel but delight. But delight implies what? Nor anything did they feel. That means their internal nature doesn't what? If there's no fault, and all they feel is delight, neither of them have mentally, morally, spiritually done what yet? Sinned. Sinned. Okay? Christ says, to look upon a woman to sleep with her, that is to lust for a woman, that's as bad as doing the deed itself. The implication here hasn't happened yet. That is, she said, I'm yours, you can rape me. You're bigger, stronger, etc., etc. The idea has been planted, but he hasn't given into it yet. He hasn't gone, wow, this could be so much fun. He hasn't had that mental image of lust. No, what are we told? They laughed and bantered long. What does it mean, banter? How many of you have seen Much Ado About Nothing or read the play? Another great, Kenneth Branagh, Emma Thompson, where Kenneth Branagh plays Benedict and she plays Beatrice. And they're probably like people you've met. You've met maybe people who seemingly, just kind of snipe at each other. Why? Because they love each other and they're too stupid to admit it. Right? Well, that's what they do. They banter back and forth. Shakespeare uses what's called sticomythia. And that is this verbal repartee. And it's just, it's like machine gun talk. Each one just firing right back at each other. Okay? So, they laughed and bantered long. She kissed her guest, charmingly took her leave, and she goes her way at last. She leaves. Second temptation is gone. He gets up. He goes to church. Okay? The knight, meanwhile, slaughters the boar. He comes back. He says, all right, Porky the Pig's yours, man. You get the whole shebang. And Sir Gawain's like, cool. And here's what I got today. And he gives him another kiss. He's like, you sly devil. I really wish I knew where those were coming from. And he says, all right, And the knight says, 1640. Got a couple minutes left. 1641. Sir Gawain says, now we are quit at the end of the day of all the agreements I've made since I came here. And the knight says, you're right. You're going to be rich soon if we keep on trading so. That is, I keep going out hunting to bring you all the stuff. And you're not giving me anything, really. Okay? So they eat, and the knight says, when Sir Gawain says, I got to leave the next day, New Year's, he says, don't worry. You can sit here till 9. The chapel's only a little ways away. You can be there early. 1680. So here's what we're going to do. Best throw third time. What's he mean? Third time wins it all. In other words, the first two, they don't really count. Third time wins it all. So, you lie in your bed, I'll go off hunting. When I come back, I'll give you whatever I won. Tomorrow night, you give me whatever you won. Okay? And Sir Gawain's like, all right, cool. So the next morning, the knight goes off hunting. What do they find? It's a cute little fox. It's a little tiny dog that isn't mean, doesn't hurt anybody, but they're English, so they kill him. Okay? And what does Sir Gawain get? We're told he lies there, but what kind of sleep is he
What line are you on?
having? Picking up with, she comes in around 1732, and let's see here. We get her just a description of her. Oh man, we're running out of time. 1740. Her lovely face and throat displayed uncovered. Her breast was exposed. Her shoulders bare. Low cut. Okay, probably a lot of cleavage. She enters the chamber, shuts the door, throws open a window, calls to the knight, and she says, how can you sleep? In the stupor of a dream, that nobleman muttered like a man overburdened with troublesome thoughts. He's sound asleep, but what kind of sleep? Troubled. Why? Nightmares of a big green man with a big X. Okay? So she speaks, he recovers his wits. He replies, she comes down to him, she bends over and kisses him. Notice, no asking, just kissing. He welcomes her politely. He sees her radiant, 1760, and attractively dressed, every part of her so perfect, in colors so fine, hot, passionate feeling welled up in his heart. And probably other parts of his body as well. Why? She comes in, she leans over him, gives him a picture, kisses him. He looks at her, and he's like, ooh, this is a much better sight than what I had when I was asleep a few minutes ago. Now, notice, he's just aware on the moment of waking up. That is, it's kind of like his conscious self hasn't taken control. He sees her, and he's like, wow, what a looker. Okay? We'll stop there, and we'll finish the Gown of the Green Knight on Tuesday. And hopefully start Chaucer's